Yo, Wu-Tang's for the children. It's your boy Rico. I'm here with Nico. What's good with you, boss?
Over here hanging out. We're back at the Nico headquarters.
Yep. So I'm gonna just see how you take to this topic.
Another surprise topic, by the way.
Hey man, I'm full of surprises, man. Full of surprises. So I wanted to ask you in regards to your childhood being raised,
All right.
and let me just give you a little conduit, right?
You
A little
you need
backstory.
to see my green card? Because I
Nah,
don't have one.
I know you. You don't gotta. Okay, we're not. Just let him talk about that. But all right, there's this idea that said if like I'd rather be a lion amongst lambs instead of a lamb amongst lions. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Do you believe if hypothetically a lion was raised with lambs, would they still they would technically be a lion, but would they have the mannerisms of a lion? Or would they be much weaker than they would be? They would lose a lot of their they would not let's not talk about instincts, but they would lose a lot of the mannerisms of a lion.
Their physical potential.
Physical potential. Okay. Now I want to talk about human beings. Okay. Now, as a man, do you believe that like a lion raised with lambs, do you believe a man can be raised into his full manhood and potential just with his mother, just with a woman?
When you said it at first, I was like, oh no, he couldn't be. But then it's different because I was like raised among women,
That's what I'm
basically.
asking you, your perspective.
Yeah.
Like, do you believe now, not only just think about your father, right? But if you were raised by a man who has an idea of the embodiment of manhood, like he has the initiative to be a man. So I'm going to live my life as a man, like a established man, and I'm going to impart to my children the embodiment of man. So my son's something to emulate, my daughter's something to understand, right?
Right.
So if
um,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
All right, well, cool. So for me and my daughter, I want to make sure that I am a established example of manhood to her. My fatherhood, being a man, being assertive, being involved, being plugged in, and taking the initiation, showing my masculine traits, but also showing that I can, I can be patient in all those aspects as well. So I try to find a really good balance, but I try to show what I believe is the hallmark of manhood. So I do a lot of hands-on things that I showcase in my manhood. That when I think about, like, say, with my father was really
For
hands-on.
you to like kind of
Mhm.
show her what you want her to think a man is, kind of thing, right?
An example, right?
Right.
But I know in my personal dealings, my dad was not really hands-on. My dad wasn't really involved. My mom was involved. My mom was a teacher. My dad was a construction worker. So what I gleaned from my father is how to work with your hands, how to stay committed to whatever work you're doing. But my dad doesn't really talk. My dad doesn't really conversate. But that's everything you see that I kind of like showcase is my mom. The things I know how to do is my dad. So I'm thinking, like, I sometimes I think about it like, if I would have had a father that's more like me, what kind of person would I have been? I have a friend who lives in Atlanta. His mom wasn't, I think she was a doctor. His dad was an attorney in the military. And I see how he was molded. I see, he pledged in college, and he owns his own business. Great guy. He's a father too. And I look at that, I was like, man, like you said, potential. I see if I would have had the kind of father that I strive to be, how much further along would I be potentially in that regard? So I want to outlet. So my thing is like this: when I say, if I was a lion cub raised with a lion, would I be more of a lion? Or if an idea that I was a lion cub raised with a lamb, am I more like a lamb? You still got your instincts, but
I
how do you
think
feel?
not the allegory, but the actual example of man being raised by a woman or vice versa, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I think yeah, you'll still be a man in the way that, how do I explain it? The short answer is yes.
Okay.
And I think it's that you will be a man, but just in a different way. But just like this is man, but like it's not just like a one type thing. There's also a man that was raised by women and was all around women like since he was a kid,
Mm-hmm.
which is pretty much my example.
Mm-hmm.
So I am a man in the way that I was raised all by women, meaning that this is all women like raising me and a couple of my other male cousins,
Mm-hmm.
and we're the man or the future man.
Okay.
Does that make sense? It's not like we're all guys and guys are raising another guy. Like, oh, he's a guy. He's
Yeah.
another guy that we're raising.
I
But these are women that are raising a man. So we are women and he's a man, kind of
okay.
thing. So there's that clear distinction that you wouldn't get if you're raised by a man alone, or at least man and woman.
So I would say, okay,
That's what I think.
So I understand your dynamic. Do you think that you think you would have had more of a man's? Did you think you would reach higher men's potential? You would understand more things, or you'd be a more assertive, or I hate to use alpha traded, but do you think that you would show more masculine traits if you were raised by a very involved male figure?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I think 100%. And I think it's more like not specifically like masculine traits or like traits of a man, but traits of a man in our culture or our society.
Mm.
That's like whatever idea we have, I'd be closer to that.
Okay.
If that kind of makes sense.
Okay.
So, and it's not about being a man or a woman. It's just like if you're raised by physicians, by athletes, by, you know what I mean, you would move towards like that middle of that group that yeah, that you're being raised by.
Yeah, because
So I mean that's what I think. I'm kind of glad I'm not. Just like I don't know, kind of you kind of stand out in a way because it's like all these guys or women, you know, whatever, they know this, but I know something completely different, so I can come at things from a different perspective, not a woman perspective because I'm not there.
mm-hmm.
I'm a man that was just raised by women. Does that make sense?
I know.
So it's like a different perspective.
So what? Okay, different.
It's like it's not a man's like a man's what you would think of a man's perspective or what a woman's perspective is. It's kind of like
you have a female influenced male's perspective. Okay.
Beautifully put.
All right. Fair enough. Fair
Beautifully
enough.
put.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. Just kind of governing your relationship with your mother. I thought about my relationship with my mother, and I said, like with that, I thought about like what society really wants from the next generation does require balance. If you want more rounded individuals that have that perspective, it'd be great to have both an invested mother and father, an invested, you know, you know, other family members, and an invested community that kind of constantly gives, good examples of, and role models of like, optimal behavior. Because, we all had someone that we revered, right? Like when you have role model like in sports, or role models that somebody who got successful.
Someone you look up to, yeah.
Yeah, and you look up because whatever they did worked. And then also you got to take a little bit of grain of salt, because then eventually we get the truth to be like, oh, it looks so glitzy and glamoury, but then you see the hard work that's behind it. You also, if you emulate someone, you can respect the hard work that they did and know, well, because I revere this person, and especially when you're young, you're impressionable. It's a lot more prone for you to kind of get routine in doing the work, because you want like pride, having pride and making other people proud. A lot of times when you're young, it comes a lot more natural to try to do things for validation reasons, which is pride. But as you get older, you kind of find out that it's not
as significant.
It's not as significant, or you could compromise. Like, well, I don't have to do that because it's not really required of me. But when children, they identify a lot of what they, how they see themselves in the world by getting validation. But I see, it's so crazy now. I see a lot of children young that don't even care about validation. They only care about entertainment.
And speaking of young, imagine the same example, but being raised by a 50, 60-year-old than a 20, 25-year-old.
Yeah,
It makes a difference.
that's a really
Does
big
that make
difference.
sense?
Yeah,
So it's like,
yeah,
it's
because
these
it, like
many things.
yeah, because you know if you have children that are raised by their grandparents, that disparity is more like
There's gonna be a difference in
you
culture there.
very big
It's two
culture
generations.
understandings. Yeah, and then there's a different consideration of I've seen children who are raised by their grandparents who are they're already in the mode of caretaker. They're either kind of like, oh, that's just granny, but then they're already caretaker, but they're caretaker for their grandmas. They're not thinking about being caretakers for their own parents. And that's crazy instead of like you said, a generational gap where your parent takes care of you and then you take care of your parent. Or you have that aspect where they always talk
You
about
have that extra generation involved.
yeah. Or
It might
grandparents
make
a
things
lot
difficult.
or grandparents a lot nicer than your parent because your parents actually raising you. And then it just the cycle
Yeah, it's
continues.
because grandparents don't have an actual responsibility or duty.
Direct responsibility.
They take it, but it's like, all right, like
Yeah.
it's
Fair
the
enough.
parents' responsibility.
Yeah.
And also going on that subject of like being raised by men or women, a lot of people have the misconception that the kid absolutely needs a mother, or the kid needs a father, and then whatever they mess up in life when they're adults is because he didn't or she didn't have the dad or the mother.
Mhm.
And I feel like that's just completely incorrect, man, because a lot of moms which are just thought or expected to be like so good and so caring and blah blah blah, they're just crappy moms, like period. Like
Okay.
that's just how it is. It happens, but people don't really see it because that's just, I don't want to say stereotype, but that's kind of like how people automatically see it.
Mhm.
And that's they're all like they don't all suck. They don't all just like not care for their kids.
True.
That's kind of, you know what I mean. So a lot of people are like, oh, so and so messed up or is gonna mess up when he or she's an adult. Oh, you're missing because they miss their dad. There's a lot of dads who are abusive. They're alcoholics. They're not there for their kids. They're not there for. They're no nothing. So in my opinion, you might as well be out. That's 100% better than having a crappy dad. And then the same thing with the mom. Oh, the mom, wasn't there, wasn't around. How do this? How do that? I don't think it's about gender so much as the actual person, like how you engage with the kid, what you do for the kid. It's more about that, and I don't think that has to do with sex.
Okay.
With the sex.
Well, I could agree with you to a degree. A lot of research has been done to kind of show the detriment of not having.
You're that, and you do a lot.
Yeah, but that's me. I won't know the results of my situation till I see the outcomes at the end. But there's been years of research that I've done about the detriment of not having proper role models based on proximity. Your parents are your first role models. Your parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles.
Yeah, good or bad.
Good or bad. So hopefully, if you got good parents who are invested and healthy, you would learn, the better traits, and your parents would want to impart the better traits that because they had time to sift through their lives and be like, okay, this is what works, this is what don't, and hopefully they can, and let you learn on your own. I think sometimes we don't have that really grounded as much, but I think when there's a void, when there's a void and you don't have the proper balances of the genders, if a woman does not have proper examples of other gainful, healthy women to relate to, or men to understand the opposite sex, no different than other experiences, basically traveling, and you need a good regimen of experiences and exposure to get a better understanding and engage yourself. So I understand what you say. It's not specifically gender, but gender are one of those categories. It's like if you never went to another country, and people who never saw a person from a different race, or never heard a different language, or never left their state. It's good to get outside of the box, and it broadens your horizons, and you get more. You kind of become a broader individual.
That's a great way to put it. That's how I feel. It just broadens my horizons.
And good and bad, because because my godbrother said the other day, you really don't understand the true value of what is good and wholesome without knowing what's evil and what's bad. So and also the perspectives. Yeah, it's hard to gauge because sometimes all it's going to come up in the sound, but okay.
No, it's not.
Okay, all right. But
literally.
But
the shadow hates when I mess with it.
I don't know why you bought the limp.
No, because it's got a little.
No,
go ahead.
But that's the whole idea in that regard. I think what everybody should be exposed to. I think hopefully you're raised in a healthy environment with a little bit of exposure.
Unfortunately, most times it doesn't happen.
No, it happens a lot. It happens a lot.
I think it's a minority.
No one's perfect. No one's perfect. No one gets the ideal. And only the person who says, I had the ideal childhood. Really? No trauma, no nothing up? Probably there's probably some. But what happens is, you have to gauge it from looking back, 2020 vision. You have to retrospectively look at it. Like, I had an ideal childhood. I never wanted for anything, this, that, and the third. I stayed on the course. I'm successful because my parents gave me the tools. There are plenty of people who have that. There's a lot of people who don't. Like, you watch soccer, you know how many guys come out of war torn or
literally
countries come from nothing, right? There's that, man. So it's one of those things. But a drink to you, boss. We made it.
Yeah, finally.
Well, we sold.
That was a good topic, man.
Yo, what do you think?
That's a good topic.
Do you think that given your environment, you can live to your full potential? Are you destined for the path you are, whether you're a man or woman, whatever?
Or you're raised by all men or women, mixture of both?
Do you feel you're lacking?
Yeah,
you feel you're lacking because you didn't have something in your life, and now you're in therapy. Like, subscribe, share, comment, get it right. Because if you ain't watching this,
you're missing the hell out. Thank you, Rico, for this podcast, and have a good one.
Keep drinking.